I'm Dr. Phil Carruthers, and this is All the Phils, where I share with you my personal life experiences, including some professional ones. If you're looking for encouragement, hope, and some fun stories, you've come to the right place. On today's episode, I share with you my experience with doing medical school in one of the most beautiful places on earth, the Caribbean island of Anguilla. Let's get to it. All right, welcome back. Episode 4. All right. Hard to believe that we're already 4 episodes in. If you haven't listened to the first 3 episodes, I encourage you to go listen to those. I've had some great feedback from those. I appreciate everyone listening, close friends, families, and even new friends that I've met along the way. People who enjoy listening to the content that I provide, and I'm just very thankful and excited that you're listening on a weekly basis. Episode 4. Can't believe it. And if this is your first time listening, I welcome you to All the Phils. I'm so happy that you're listening, that you chose to listen to this podcast. One of the many, many long list of podcasts that are out there. I'm thankful that you're listening to mine at this present moment. So thank you. Let's get to it. Before we jump into the main topic, which is my experience in the Caribbean as a medical student, I wanted to talk about my current progress right now with residency. So we're midway through week 2 of my pathology residency, and I have seen some amazing things. Things that honestly you don't really hear about in medical school. You're not really prepared for them. The general consensus is that there's just not really a whole lot of pathology exposure to you as a medical student, whether US or IMG. I am an IMG, which is an international medical graduate. So I went to a non-US based medical school. The med school that I did go to had a bunch of Americans there. They also had Canadians. I met my first Canadian friend in medical school, and I developed some close friendships with them. They got to hear this Alabama boy accent, and I got to hear their Canadian accent. And, we like to mess with each other about our accents, but the friendship is there. The camaraderie is real. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, residency. So, yeah, a lot of it has been involving grossing, grossing specimens, from colon polyps to actual, gallbladders, and taking those large gallstones out. And just a large range of specimens. I think got to do a fallopian tube. Got to help assist on a breast specimen, just a whole myriad of things. And again, when I talk about grossing, we are literally getting these specimens and we are laying them down on a cutting board. We are either, slicing them with our scalpel. We're taking measurements. We're giving physical descriptions, and we're actually creating dictation reports so that pathologists can read these and they can better see, what do we see grossly? What are we actually looking at with the naked eye right now? What measurements are we dealing with? And then as we, prepare these specimens, we're putting them into these little things called cassettes, not like the old school 1980s, 1990s cassettes. You stick it in a tape deck, you play your favorite, Chumbawamba song or Pearl Jam song or whatever awesome band there were back in the 90s. These are actual little cassettes. I'd say they're about like maybe 2 by 2 inches. Go Google it sometime. It's like a little holder for tissue specimens, and then you close it up. They're very small, so we prepare them for looking under a microscope, and eventually a diagnosis is going to be made. Right? We can't look at it and just say, oh, that's going to be a squamous cell carcinoma, or oh, that's going to be some kind of neoplasia or some kind of malignancy. So, that's what we're doing right now. We're preparing for that. So it's pretty great being a pathology resident. You start at the very, very beginning, and then, you start from the macroscopic, seeing what the object is, to the microscopic, preparing for that. So, and another thing too, I actually got to sit in on an autopsy, actually 2 of them. I've never gotten to do that before. And, you see what happens from beginning to end. And obviously there's a respect factor that's going on there. You get to learn about their past medical history, what led to them to their mortality, what led to them expiring. And I'll be honest, at first it was a different feeling. I'm not used to just seeing a dead body there, and then you open up said dead body. I'm just not used to that. I understand if this kind of makes you squeamish. I'm not going to go into too much detail about exactly what we do, but as a resident, as a pathology resident, when you're doing these autopsies, you're trying to do it in a systematic way. You're trying to do it by a step-by-step process so that you make sure that you don't overlook something that could potentially help aid in finding a cause of death. And it's more than just trying to find a cause of death, right? Families, a lot of times, they want closure. They want to know what happened. Was this expected? Was this unexpected? Could this have been prevented? There's all these questions that families have, and obviously we want to make sure that we can give them the most answers possible in this time, right? Because they're not just trying to find answers to how their loved one passed. They're also grieving, right? In our second episode, we talk about grief, going through all those 5 stages, maybe in order, maybe not, maybe concurrently. So there's a lot of things to consider, especially during this, right? Pathologists, it's not just about trying to, study disease states. But you're still a physician too, and you're still caring and worrying about patients and their loved ones. We never want to just treat the disease. We want to treat the patient, right? That's for all physicians, not just pathologists. That's for all physicians, right? We want to make sure that we're humans first and then physicians, right? We need to have that heart for others. We need to understand and show that empathy, not sympathy, empathy. We want to put ourselves in their shoes. How would we feel if our father was dying of cancer? And how would we want our father or our mother or our loved one, whoever it may be, how would we want them treated? We would want them to have the absolute best care that this world can provide. So having that mindset, having that perspective, that's, as a physician, that's what you want to have. It can be, it could be draining at times. A big thing in the physician world, especially, the residency physician world, is burnout. Burnout is a real thing. And burnout, when I talk about that, that's literally you feel overwhelmed, you feel overworked, having to deal with all these caseloads, having to make sure that you cover your bases so that nothing gets lost in the system. You make sure that patient care is at the highest quality possible. And a lot of times it may take a toll on your physical health. It may take a toll on your mental health. And one of the many things that you can do to avoid burnout is to be open about it, to talk about it. I have some great colleagues, 2 other individuals that I work with on a daily basis. We're both first-time pathologists. This is all new for us too. It's not just me that it's new for. This is new for all, the 2 of my other colleagues. And we both can relate to one another. We share about our struggles. We share about the difficulties of it, but we also have that massive support for each other. Right? You never want to keep it bottled in. Open up. And when you open up, you realize, oh, wow, I'm not the only one that's struggling here. Open up. And so that's what's made this residency amazing. My attendings, everybody that is part of the program, they always say, if you have questions, we are here to help you with that, right? There's no stupid question. Ask that question, right? Ask away. And, having that comfort zone, having that ability to ask those questions, it has definitely made residency pretty amazing. And I'm happy to be in pathology too. I think that helps as well. Again, I used to be, I was in pediatrics, and, I'm so excited now to be doing something and learning about something that I have a passion for. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the disease states behind pediatrics. I do. They actually have a fellowship for pediatric pathology, and majority of pathology fellowships are usually 1 year in duration. I believe neuropath, focuses on the nervous system. That's usually 2 years, I believe, maybe 3. I'll have to double check. But this one, majority of them are 1 year. So, it's exciting to think that I can, still keep my passion for, disease states and, how diseases affect the human body, especially those of the pediatric population, especially as they're growing, they're developing, what their immune systems are doing, all that. So it's very exciting times, All right, so learning not just the macroscopic, everything from grossing specimens and doing autopsies. I'm also learning about the microscopic level, getting familiarized with what cells look like under a microscope, what the morphologies of things. How do we describe these cells? What are we looking at? What's normal? What's abnormal? Looking at different tissues such as from the uterus, within the uterus, the endometrium, whether we're looking at different, small intestine, the colon, all these different areas of the body that we're looking at, I'm familiarizing myself with those tissue associations, and I'm not used to doing that. So it's very exciting times. It's a lot. It's one of those, you need to have a heart, a passion to learn, right? You're not going to know everything up front. You're just not. You can't fear learning. You can't. If you don't know something, learn about it. Have that confidence to learn about it. Don't fear it. Learn it. All right. Anything can be learned. All right. It can. You just have to have that willingness, and you have to have that confidence in yourself and believe that you really can take on this task of learning something new. All right. No matter what it is, whether it be medicine, I don't know, astrophysics, cooking, right? I'm scared. I was scared to cook for the longest time, and I realized, well, you just have to sit down and learn how to cook chicken the right way. It took me forever to cook a chicken breast for the longest time because I would always overcook it, and it would be, super rubbery. And, it's one of those you can throw it against the wall and bounce right back to you, right? It was that kind of consistency when I cook chicken. So, it's just trial and error. I just want to encourage you to really try something new, learn a new task, learn a new hobby, whatever that may be. Okay, so a bunch of little different tangents there, but there they are. So I want to talk about Anguilla. Let's talk about it, okay? So I get asked a lot, how in the world did you know about Anguilla? Okay, how did you know? And quite frankly, I had no clue about Anguilla. I didn't know what it was. I was actually in Alabama. I was working on a master's in molecular biology and genetics, going to Alabama A&M University. Right, it's in Normal, Alabama, just on the outskirts of Huntsville. And during that time, I was waiting to get into med school. You have to take your MCAT. It's like that entry-level exam for med school. And so I actually took it, and I did not do good on it. I bombed it hard. It was not a very good score at all. It wasn't competitive. And so I decided to, I needed to take it, a couple more times, but, I wanted to have enough months to really study for this thing, do well on it, get into a good school. And so I took it 3 times, all right? That is a lot of times to take the MCAT to get into, med school. But I wanted to, follow my dream, right? At this point, I had already spent 5 years doing prerequisites just to get into med school, right? Because there's a lot of required courses you have to take, up to Physics 2 with Cal 2, organic chemistry, 1 and 2, biology. You have to meet all the requirements. There's a lot of math requirements. Again, I talked about, calculus 2. I started at the very bottom. I started at math 98. I took that math placement test just to see where you are, what math courses can you clip out of. And I started at math 98. I was not very good at math. I wasn't. Even growing up in grade school, I was awful. I was a C student, maybe D, if at best. So, so I was like, well, let's start this. Let's get to it. So over the years, I took all those prerequisites, and I learned, and I improved, and I had that motivation. I had that fire that was lit, right? It only takes one match to cause a forest fire. One little match, one spark, and then after that, forest fire. It can cover a lot. It all starts with just one little match, right? That motivation. I want you to use that metaphor, right? That motivation to drive you. There's so many things that you were capable of. And for the longest time, I did not think I was capable. That's why I didn't become a physician. I didn't believe that I was capable. It was time to start believing, all right? Today, it is time to start believing, okay? So fast forward, I'm in that year where, I've taken my prerequisites and I'm working on this master's, while I get into med school. and I'm taking a course in my master's level, and I think it was like a cardiology course. It was like a cardiology physiology course, and the teacher, the professor, he had heard that I wanted to do med school. He actually saw me in my scrubs one day and asked where I was working, and I was working as a cardiovascular technician at Heart Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And he said, so are you trying to get into med school? I was like, yeah, I am. I'm needing to, I've improved on my MCAT. I was able to get a good enough score to where I could apply and realistically get in somewhere in the U.S. And he said, well, have you ever considered the Caribbean? And I said, the Caribbean, like Caribbean med school? And he said, yeah, have you ever considered it? I was like, honestly, sir, I have never researched into it. I think there's a lot of negative stigma when it comes to med schools that are not, that are not based in the U.S. And that's more so just from a lack of education. That's a lack of me, really doing my research. And I wanted to see, well, hey, what does it entail? Is this going to prepare me to be a physician that will be able to practice medicine in the U.S.? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. I have quite a few colleagues that are physicians, and that's where I learned the term IMG, International Medical Graduate. And he showed me the school. He actually said his father lived on this tiny little island called Anguilla. And I said, sorry, I've never heard of that. Is that a real place? He said, yeah, it's just off of, it's close to Puerto Rico. And it's very close to St. Martin. So essentially the way to get there, you go to Atlanta, and for me, I did Huntsville to Atlanta, and then I flew from Atlanta to St. Martin, and then I would take a ferry over to the island of Anguilla. It's just that easy. So the first thing I do, I get on my laptop and I YouTube Anguilla. I just want to see the island. I want to see what it's like. And when I look at it, when I see this video, I mean, it's the most beautiful beaches I have ever seen. It is known for having the most beautiful beaches in the world. It's also known for a lot of celebrities that go there on vacations. LeBron James, Justin Bieber, they actually would go there, and they spend a week or two in these villas that are there. It's just absolutely beautiful. The weather, 80, 85 year round, is just so pretty. But my big thing was, all right, what does the school look like? I want to see it. And, when I was researching it, you just see a bunch of different, island areas. And then you see these collection of buildings, like 2-story buildings, all clustered together. It's like a little mini campus. It looks like a campus that does not belong in that area of the island. The grass is super green. It's well groomed. It doesn't look like it belongs. And that is the medical school. And so I wanted to make sure, is this a legitimate school? Am I able to really, get a good education out of here? And so, again, I did more research. If you don't know something, just do your research. Just look into it. Does this school allow me to sit for the U.S. medical licensure exam, the U.S. MLE, right? Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. I'm sure you've heard of all those. Those 3 exams, they allow you to become a fully licensed physician in the United States. So two things. 1, you have to pass those collections of tests, and 2, you have to complete a residency to be able to practice medicine in the United States. So those are those requirements. So I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do this, I was going to commit to it. And I'm not talking about commit to like my studies. I knew I would do that. But what I was curious about was, this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The weather is amazing. How does one focus and concentrate in an environment like this? I was very curious about it. So I did more research, and then eventually, I reached out to some current students and asked about their experience, and they said they love it. It's very hard. It's very challenging. Majority of the professors actually come from U.S. schools. Some come from, internationally from other countries, and they're very knowledgeable in their respective fields. They know what they're doing. They prepare you for residency. And obviously my big thing was, okay, that's awesome. So what residency can you get by going to this school? And really it's based upon you, not specifically just the school, but it's mainly based upon you. Yes, a lot of programs do consider U.S. trained medical students compared to non-U.S. trained, such as myself, because I ended up going to that school, my Caribbean school, and so they consider a lot of those different aspects. But you have your licensure exams that you take, and obviously you need to score well on these tests compared to your other U.S. medical student counterparts to really be competitive. So I'm thinking of all this, and there's a reason I'm not going right into my adventure yet, because I wanted to make sure for me, I'm doing my research. I know that what the plan's going to be. There's going to be a timeline. I'm going to make sure that I get the best education possible by going to this school of this caliber. I wanted to make sure that it was accredited. I wanted to make sure that it met the standards of even a U.S. med school. So to make sure that they are meeting those standards, right, they have an accrediting body called the Caribbean Accreditation Authority for Education in Medicine and Other Health Professions, CAMHP, right? So it's an accrediting body for the education programs and the School of Medicine, Dentistry, Veterinary Medicine, Nursing, all these other professions in 15 member nations of the Caribbean community. All right, it was established in 2003, headquartered in Jamaica. So, this CAMHP is very important, and I'll talk a little bit more about my involvement with CAMHP, as I was actually vice president of our SGA, our student government body, at my med school. So, that's a big thing. You want to make sure that whatever school you go to, if it's an international school, even a U.S. school, you want to make sure that they're accredited by some entity that recognizes that, hey, what I'm learning is going to be the absolute standard to be able to practice medicine at the highest level. Right? It needs to meet that standard. And so once I saw that the school that I was going to choose, was going to be that for, St. James School of Medicine in Anguilla, I had to go. I wanted to go. So, I have never traveled internationally. I was terrified. I think even so at the time I was in my late 20s. I had not flown since I was 7. I think I flew to El Paso, Texas to see my late grandfather and grandmothers. It was the one time I met them, but I remember that was the last time I rode a plane. So, there was a lot of that stress. There was a lot of that, uncertainty of the unknown, but I get asked a lot, like, why do the Caribbean? Why not just, go to a U.S. school? And I think I had, at this point, I was just so motivated. I was like, I'm doing all these new things. I'm accomplishing all these new things, and I love adventure. And I know that obtaining a good residency, can be done because a lot of former students, they were able to get great residencies. And that motivated me. That inspired me. And so, make sure, do your research. Reach out to other students from, past Caribbean schools or other international schools and see what their experience was, see what residencies they obtained, and, that'll tell you. Look at their accreditation status for that school. Just some things to really consider. And so when I told my parents that I was, accepted into my medical school, they were excited for me. And then when they asked where it was, they were still excited. They were more confused because they were questioning my choice to go there. And quite frankly, I just wanted to have a new experience. I mean, medicine in and of itself was a new experience for me, just like social work was an experience for me. I wanted to try a new experience. I talked about my sister passing away in episode 2, and there were so many things that she did not get to experience in this life. She didn't get to travel internationally. She didn't get to do all the things that she wanted to do, go to all the places that she wanted to go to, see her boys grow up, all these things that she didn't get to do. And that motivated me after she passed away. It motivated me to want to try new things. I was like, you know what? She would want me to go try new things because she would want to try new things. She would want to go to new places to explore. And that helped motivate me too, to try something new. And so I got on that plane and I flew to the Caribbean. I started in January of 2016. It was like the first week of January. So, very, very cold in North Alabama. I know some of my Chicago friends and North Dakota friends and South Dakota friends are laughing right now, but yes, it was cold in North Alabama in January. So, going from I think it was maybe 15, 16 degrees at the time from Alabama, and then flying in one day, getting to 85-degree weather in Anguilla, it was incredible. It was so amazing. However, I did pay for it. I developed a really bad cold. I think a lot of that attributed to not just the change, in the environment, a change, in the climate, but also I was at an airport. Hospitals are germy and dirty, so are airports. I mean, you're getting flushed into tons of people all over the world, and you can get sick. So practice good hand hygiene. Cover your mouth when you cough. All those good things. Good hand hygiene. You'll be good to go. Okay. So, when I got there, I had no clue who anyone was. I knew one person. That's because I found him on Facebook, and we had communicated back and forth. He was in my class as well, and very good guy. His name was Satish, and I remember just talking with this guy. I mean, he was so excited to start medical school. He was very, very excited. This guy had a business background, and he decided to go into medicine, and I could relate to that, right? I had a social work background, and that encouraged me. I felt like, okay, I wasn't totally in over my head. Him and I both admitted to each other we had no clue. We had no clue what a cell was, how it worked, and we learned along the way on how cells work, and just one little thing at a time, one bite at a time, right? I'm going to be talking about that. Bringing that up from prior episodes, right? How to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. It can be done, just one bite. Okay. So, we got there, and we're happy to see each other, just excited, and from then on out, I was able to meet so many other people. When I first got there, I thought I was getting a house with just by myself. And then I find that I'm actually going to share this house with somebody else. And I was like, I thought I was getting this place by myself. Like, oh, no, you're getting a roommate. I was like, okay. I mean, and this wasn't like school housing. This was just housing in Anguilla. They have apartments everywhere. They have rooms to rent. They have all these different places. But just to give you an idea, Anguilla, not big at all. Okay. Not big at all. Okay, it's roughly, I think it was 16 miles long and 3 miles wide. So you can imagine how big that is. I mean, if you look at a picture of Anguilla, right, and I learned this was pretty cool, right, the etymology of all of it. Anguilla, it actually means eel, right? So, in turn from the Latin diminutive of anguius, I'm probably saying that wrong, don't call me out on it, which means snake. So if you look at, a picture of Anguilla, it does look like a little eel, a snake. I thought it looked like a shriveled up piece of bacon that was cooked too long and it was extra crispy. That's the Alabama food coming out of me. But yeah, it was named after like the eel, the snake. And so, when we got there, I met my roommate. So I was going to be there for 16 months, right? You go there, you do your book work, and then you go back to the States and you study for your step 1 licensure, which is one of the hardest exams I have ever had to take in my life. As many of my colleagues know, it's one of those tests where if you cannot pass it, you're going to change your career again, right? This is that test where it either makes you or breaks you, right? And after that, that's kind of the pinnacle of difficulty when it comes to med school. After that, if you pass step 1, you're going to be fine. That's kind of the general consensus of that. So I met my roommate, Vishav, great guy from Las Vegas. I'd never met anybody from Las Vegas before, and he's the first one I've ever met. Such a good guy. We had, we carpooled to classes, to school every day together. We lived on the 3rd floor of this penthouse. I mean, like there was a 360, it was like a square building, and it was a 360, patio, covered patio. It was beautiful. It was amazing. We got along well. We experienced med school together well, and yeah, there was no AC. Okay, and the great thing about that is, well, there's nothing great about it, but the good thing that was the fact that we were so close to the beach there, and we were on the third floor, so we got that great breeze from the beach, and it's just it kept you cool. I mean, obviously AC would have helped, but very very few places had had those air conditioning units. Very few of them, and if they did, you're going to pay for it in rent. You are. So with that being said, let's just talk about med school in and of itself. So med school for us, we met Monday through Fridays. We had classes 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock every day. And we went over, all the basic courses that you take in medical school, with anatomy, embryology, and then physiology, pathology, all those good courses. They were the very similar courses, the standards that you were supposed to meet to be able to be successful as a physician. We were exposed to those basic sciences courses. So for my school in particular, you stay on the island for 16 months total. At the time, it was 16 months. It's now extended out to 20 to include a prep course for the USMLE Step 1. But when I was there, it was 16 months of book work, and then you would go home to the States, and you would study for your licensure exam, however long that may have taken you. I remember that one of the hardest things to do in med school, especially on a Caribbean island, is to maintain your studies and to balance out the fact that not only are you in medical school, you're also on one of the most beautiful islands in the world when it came to, luxurious resorts and beautiful beaches, great temperatures year round. And so that was that added distraction, right? So you had to practice that responsibility. You had to make sure that you were doing your due diligence by making sure that you studied when you did. I mean, we had quizzes every other day, whatever classes it may have been. So really it was almost like having quizzes every day, because in some classes they overlap, some classes they were one after the other. So they kept you on your toes. They made sure to quiz the mess out of you. And we always had block exams. Each block was, usually 4 weeks duration. And we had those block exams, and then after that is when we all got together, we celebrated, we went out to the beach at night, we went, to different places, got some great food, good nightlife, all that good stuff. But what was the downfall of many people was that they'd want to go out and party, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. I'm like, guys, how are you doing this? And they'd always say, hey, we have it under control. It's okay. And then, a couple of months later, you wouldn't see them the next semester. They had flunked out. They'd partied way too much, and it happens. But for me in particular, I wasn't just doing medical school. I was working on my master's degrees concurrent, so at the same time. And I did that just because I wanted to be competitive come residency interview time. So I... in November 2015, I started my master's in public health, and about 2.5 years later, I finished that, and then I immediately started on my master's in health administration. And the entire time, I had to balance it out. Wednesdays and Fridays were my master's nights, right? So all the other nights I would study. And those other nights were more dedicated for my master's homework. So it was definitely a balance. It was not easy by any means. Take your breaks. You have to take your breaks here and there, maybe like an hour of two of your favorite show. For me, it's How I Met Your Mother. That's my all-time favorite show. So if you need a good indicator of how well you and me will get along together, I mean, I'm generally nice to everybody. I think anybody can tell you that. I'm pretty approachable. I'm friendly. I'm nice, but How I Met Your Mother, that will be it. I know that show religiously, annoyingly. I can quote it. It's a great show. Anyway, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. I won't spoil anything for you. But, you need to take those breaks, right? You need to make sure that you're taking care of your mind, you're taking care of your body, your soul, your spirit. I mean, you need all those things to be successful. And if there's a lapse in one of those, it will follow you. And there were nights where I could not retain any information. It doesn't matter how beautiful this island is. I am still in medical school, and that stress is still there. I mean, if I'm fearing, maybe in microbiology, if I'm not able to retain some of the characteristics for this type of parasite versus another type of parasite, that's it's going to bother me. And you have to find ways on how to decompress, on how to forgive yourself. So throughout med school, it was a lot of learning. It was a lot of learning how to learn. You're going to fail at things. I failed quizzes. I failed exams, sure. But, I improved over time. That's the thing. You need to track your progress. You need to improve. I always say at the end of each show, give yourself some grace. My goodness, did I need to give myself some grace during medical school. So for all of those that are in med school right now, keep up the good work. Keep up, fight the good fight. You will get past it. If you're studying for that step one, hey, I'm wishing you the best of luck. I know I know how hard it was. I spent 16 months on the island. Got through the book work. We had our white coat ceremony. It was a beautiful, beautiful scenery. I was able to give like a little speech of encouragement and whatnot. It was pretty great. And we all went off on our separate ways to, at the time, we would go to Chicago, and we did like a little, like a 3-4 month semester of, a prep course for USMLE Step 1. And then after that, you're on your own. You pass your Step 1, and then you can start clinical rotations. That was kind of what the rule was back then. So for me, I mean, I went back to my childhood home, in my 30s, and I am studying 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, to do the best I can on this exam. And it's not because I enjoyed it. It's because that's what allowed me to be successful. That's what allowed me to be able to retain all these little facts, all this information that you need, and recall. You have to have a very fast recall when it comes to, answering questions, right? So, the island, I miss it. I really do. One day I'm going to go back. I really am. I'm not sure when that's going to be. It'll probably be after I finish my fellowship. But I do miss it. It was a great time. Met a lot of good people, a lot of great personalities, and I see some of them from here from time to time. But make those friendships, if you're in medical school, really engage in those close bonds and learn what you can. As a medical student, if you're doing any other kind of school, any kind of graduate work, I know I've had people reach out to me like, hey, I'm not in med school or anything, but I'm working on a master's in this, or I'm working on an undergrad in that. Hey, keep it up. You're doing great. You're doing big things. You get one life to live. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with your one life? So I'm proud of you. I want to encourage you. Just keep it up. But yeah, I do miss the island. One little side note, Anguilla is, United Kingdom territory. So, funny little side story. When my parents, my mom and dad, they came, they came over to Anguilla. It was their first time in the Caribbean, and I didn't tell them that it was, United Kingdom territory. So, when you drive, you drive on the left side of the road, and I did not tell them that. So when I went to go pick them up in my rental car, at the ferry port, they got through and everything, welcomed them. And as soon as I got on the road, my dad, he was in the passenger side. He was freaking out. He was grabbing my arm. He was like, get in the other lane. You're in the wrong lane. And I said, Dad, we're not in America anymore, and it was really funny. But, they had a great time there. They enjoyed it. Just to enjoy that time, and it all came to pass, So, with that being said, wherever life takes you, whether you're doing medical school in the United States, good for you for, being there. And, hey, if you decide to do, the Caribbean, or you do some other, international medical school like I did, I chose that. I wasn't forced to do Caribbean medical school. I chose to do that because I did my research and I wanted to do something different. You live one life. And I got to spend it in paradise for 1.5 years while also learning how to become a doctor. And It was a great time. It really was. It was book work. I mean, we got to do dissections on cadavers. We got the whole medical school experience, and it was really exciting. I had so many great professors, had so many great, faculty and staff that I worked with while I was there. Like I mentioned earlier, I got to serve as vice president of our student government association, and that was really great too. Getting to, work with people and, deal with any kind of like inter-student conflicts, as that happens. And, I got to also, attend accreditation meetings, just to make sure that our school was fulfilling its duties and making sure that we were, being taught what we needed to be taught in order to be successful as a physician. We were meeting the standards of the curriculum. If there are any other issues that, maybe perhaps we weren't going over this particular bit of curriculum that, or, any of concerns that we may have had, I got to represent a voice of our student body. So that was pretty cool. That was a really great experience to be involved with that. So I encourage you, those medical students that are in, you're in med school right now, get involved with some clubs, organizations, residency interviews. They enjoy hearing about your extracurriculars. I mean, yeah, I did a couple of master's degrees. They like that, especially the, doing that concurrent, how to, it's really budgeting time is the main thing that they like. But also showing that you have that social side to you. You have a, community service side of you. I got to serve as vice president of the Student Government Association. I was the Red Cross president at the time. I also got to be buddy program coordinator. And so pretty much the buddy program was to be able to allow students, new incoming students to match up with a student that's already been on the island for a couple of months, an upper level. And they were able to kind of help guide them, through that transition. I mean, it is a very scary transition. And I remember my buddy, and he helped guide me. He answered all my questions that I had. He helped me out with resources. He helped me to know, what was a good flow, like what was like a good successful day, like what did that look like for a medical student. And he really helped me set that up. There was never any dumb question. Don't fear asking questions. You need to ask questions, for whatever you're doing. And he answered them for me, and I was really appreciative of it. Sometimes we get so shy. We have that social anxiety. I have mad social anxiety, believe it or not. I am very socially anxious, and my outlet is more so to, go to the gym, work it off, or do things like this podcast. This is my way of doing that. It's mad social anxiety. It's pretty rough. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Daniel Tosh. He's on Comedy Central. He's a stand-up comedian, does a lot of funny bits. You would never guess it, but he also has really bad social anxiety. He did open up about that in a little chat that he was having. I forgot where he said it, but that kind of reached out to me. That really inspired me, and it made me feel better about my own social anxiety. So that's it. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe and check out All the Phils podcast on Instagram. I want to thank my producer and marketing director, Caleb McLean, for his hard work and diligence. Remember to give yourself some grace, and remember to join me next week as we get into the feels in All the Phils. So long.